I'm Aryeh Schwartz along with Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. Born to be a legend, our guest this episode has a complete resume. NCAA title, 4 WNBA titles, 3-time WNBA MVP, 6-time All-Star, All-Star Game MVP, and the accolades go on. The one, the only, Sheryl Swoopes. Like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. And remember, downloading the episode makes our stats look better and allows us to continue doing this important work. Want to sponsor an episode of the Winsidr Show? Email us info@winsidr.com. I say this often that it is such an honor to welcome our next guest to the show, but I don't think it has ever been more true than today. It is such an honor to welcome our next guest, the legend, the icon herself, Sheryl Swoopes, to the show. Sheryl, how are you doing on this fine day?
I am doing wonderful. It's great to be here. Thank you.
I want to start by talking what you're up to these days, and please feel free to cut me off and fill in at any point, but I saw that you're part of a new company called Signed. And to fill in our listeners, it sounds like the ultimate memorabilia experience. You go to the Signed website, you pick an icon like yourself, Sheryl Swoopes, and within, 7 to 10 business days, you have a signed ball that comes with a personalized video message. And the fan in me is beyond hyped about this because there's really nothing else like this in the world. I mean, it's priceless. So I'm curious for you, tell us why you joined. And if you could tell us, I mean, we all know, at least I know why, but can you tell us in your opinion, why it's important to have such a iconic woman be part of something like this?
Well, first of all, I'm excited to be here. Like I love being able to talk about just different things and stuff that I'm up to now, and so I appreciate both of you having me. But you said it when you said there's nothing like it out there. And I think one reason why, there are several reasons why I wanted to be a part of it, but one of the main reasons is I feel like lots of times when people say washed up, I would never use that word. But when you're a retired athlete, just a whatever type of celebrity, whatever it is you do, when you're retired from it, lots of times people tend to forget about who you are or who you were and what you did and what you meant to the sport. And I think Signed gives so many people that opportunity to say, look, I'm still around, here I am. And there are fans out there who still love the retired players and who still remember who the retired players were and what they did. And that's not just in basketball, that's in every sport and in every career. And so I think Signed, it makes it more personal and it gives you that opportunity to really connect with a fan. And for that fan to say, yes, I would love to have a signed item from Sheryl Swoopes. And not only is that item signed, but then you get a personal message. And I just think it makes it more personable. And I've always enjoyed and always loved interacting with my fans. And this just gives me another opportunity to do that in a different way.
I absolutely love that. You know, it's crazy. I was talking to my best friend from junior high a couple days ago, and I was like, yeah, I'm actually getting ready to have Sheryl Swoopes on the podcast because she was talking about you, and her daughter is in grade school, has just found a love for basketball, and she was like, you know who she loves? She loves Sheryl Swoopes. And this is someone who's literally like 7 years old.
Aw.
And I thought it was the coolest thing. And I said, okay, I'm going to have to, share this info with you and I'll make sure I send you the podcast. But she was like, she loves the game and she loves Swoopes. And I think part of it was her mother, who grew up kind of idolizing you. We both had your shoes. We'll talk about that later in the show. But I mean, everything you're bringing up is so important because, where the game is now rests on the shoulders of those who've gone before. And I think it's important to understand that history. And my God, I speak for anyone probably listening to this podcast. If you don't know who Sheryl Swoopes is, we got problems. So I'm really excited for you. I think that's a really good late Christmas gift idea. So I might have to toss that one over to my family members. But the reason that you're an icon, let's get into a little bit of basketball. We've seen you wear a lot of different hats. You played in the league in its inception. You played for a very long time. You have an incredible perspective of the game. I just kind of want to start off by asking you, how have you seen the game grow in the last 25 years?
Wow. Rachel, it's grown tremendously. But before I answer that question, I want to address one thing that you mentioned about Signed and, and the icons that are a part of it. It's a wonderful opportunity to do just that, to give, Christmas is around the corner. So many people are like, what am I going to do for Christmas? And this is a perfect Christmas gift. But to your earlier point, yeah, the older generation, the older fans out there can relate to who we are, and they know who we are. But having an opportunity to educate their kids on, not only the WNBA today, but the players who came before. And I think Signed is another way to do that. And I love my fans, young, old, in between. It doesn't really matter. So I'm super excited about it. But when you talk about how the game has changed today, my first thought, it's not even about how the game has changed on the court. It's more about off the court. And social media, I think, has played a tremendous role in growing the game. It gives players and the fans an opportunity to really connect with the players and get to know who the players are in a different light. I mean, we had that a little bit, but not to the extent where the players have it today. I told someone the other day, I think my only social media back then was Facebook. And now you look at social media today, there's so many different mediums that I don't even know what they are. But when you talk about how it's changed on the court, I just think the talent level from top to bottom is just crazy. There are good things, there are bad things, but when I look at the league today and the talent today it's like anybody could win a championship, right? And I think when the league first started, you probably had three or four teams, four max, that every year people were saying this, it's either going to be Houston, Los Angeles, New York, or Phoenix. It's going to win. Those are probably the teams people were talking about. And today it's like every day it's like, oh my gosh, who's going to win the championship? And I think that's just credit to players who continue to work on their game, continue to get better. And it's like you never know who's going to win a championship from year to year.
You really don't. And perfect example would be this year, right? Watching the Chicago Sky come from the do or die rounds early on and make it all the way. Something that if you would have asked me a few years ago if that was possible, I would say you're crazy. But often when we ask players, every time we have players on our podcast, we like to ask them, who did you look up to when you were young? Who's the GOAT to you? And it might not surprise you. It doesn't surprise any of us, but your name is mentioned often. Not often isn't even the right word, much more than often. But I want to kind of flip that question on its head because we have you on the podcast. What players do you see in the league, and do you kind of get a little smile and go, she's got a little swoops in her game?
I knew you were going to ask me this. Gosh, the first player that comes to mind, unfortunately, she's been dealing with injuries the last couple of seasons, is Angel McCoughtry. I love Angel's game. Just I've always loved her game, even when she was at Louisville. But when I look at her game in the W, and this is prior to her injuries, she reminds me so much of myself, meaning, I always took a lot of pride in playing both ends of the floor. I never really got concerned with my offense, meaning if coach is calling plays for me or not, because I knew I was going to defend and I knew my defense was going to turn into offense. So I was going to get my points. But I look at Angel, and a lot of the stuff she does reminds me of myself. The other player that comes to mind is Kalia Copper. I am such a fan of hers. I love her game. She's got a little, I think I said this in another interview. I said she has a little stank to her game. Which is a good thing. But defensively, she gets out in passing lanes. She takes pride in her defense. Offensively, she's got a quick first step. She can get to the hole. She has a nice pull up. Just the way she runs, different moves she makes really reminds me of myself. Another player that doesn't remind me of myself, but I smile about when I think about her is Vandersloot. I'm just I'm just a fan. That's all I'll say. I know that wasn't your question, but I'm a huge fan of hers. So those would be the two players that when I think about my game when I played and where the game is today, those two, Angel and Copper, remind me of myself.
I love Kalia Copper, and I love Vandersloot, and I love Angel. And I just love you even more than I already do. So I want to ask you about you're a little bit more into your career. We don't have enough time to talk about everything, but defining moments of your career. I mean, you won a championship at Texas Tech. That was huge. You went on, you played. Everyone really thinks primarily about, obviously the dynasty, the Houston Comets. You were in the league for a long time, into the later years of your playing career, which is incredible. I want to ask you, really, from grassroots to now, what are some defining moments of your career?
Oh goodness gracious. Um when I think about grassroots, you're taking me way back, Rachel. When I think about grassroots, AAU, and for me growing up, we had what we call little dribblers back in West Texas. Um, there's no doubt that little dribblers in AAU played a huge part of my basketball career, and I think that's when the love for me. I started playing when I was 7, and it's crazy because I knew at a young age, at the age of 7, that basketball was going to be like my thing, my it. Um, did I know it was going to take me to places that it has taken me and continues to take me? No, but I knew that it was like that was my love, that was my passion. There was something about a basketball. Didn't matter the color because I had a lot of different colors. Some were flat, some had air. It didn't really matter, but there was something about me and a basketball um, that's kind of unexplainable. I didn't have to have a hoop. I didn't have to have a gym. I just needed a ball. And when I had a ball, I was in my zone. I was in my space, and that was just my opportunity to really focus on basketball. Um, so no doubt, just growing up at the age of 7, that was and playing ball, that was a huge part of my career. But another defining moment, as crazy as it may sound, I would say would have to be when the league first started and me giving birth to my son. And the reason why I say that was such a defining moment is because it to me it wasn't about me, but it was about me showing every woman out there just like I think we know how strong and great and tough we are and what we're capable of. But in that moment for me, being able to take time off and give birth and then come back from that and have my son be a part of it, I think it just really showed women around all over the world um, what we're capable of and that we don't have to sacrifice one or the other. And being able to raise my son around so many strong, powerful, beautiful, tough women to this day just gives him a completely different perspective and respect of women and what we're capable of. And you can't leave out the championships and playing alongside so many incredible players with the Comets, and then having an opportunity to play, in 3 Olympics with some of the best players in the world. Like all of those moments to me are defining in different aspects and on different levels. And in the end would be being inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's every athlete's dream when their career is over, to be able to say, I am in the Basketball Hall of Fame, or whatever sport that is. and I don't, and it's not to take anything away from the Women's Hall of Fame, but the Naismith Hall of Fame is the best of the best. And that's men, women. And so to be able to have this conversation today, knowing that that dream has come true for me, um, I don't know. Like I still get, honestly, I still get emotional when I think about that moment, and when I got the call saying you're going into the Hall of Fame. Because I think about my journey and everything I went through along the way, good, bad, and indifferent. And to be able to celebrate that with my loved ones and my mom and my family, um, it doesn't get any better than that.
It really doesn't. And that was so beautiful, what you said about you and your son. Being a person who was raised by extremely strong women. It makes me so happy and warm in my heart to hear
Love
that.
that feels. Love that.
But I want to ask, looking back at those 4 rings, which one stands out to you the most?
Um, Well, it's always the first one because you were the first, right? So to be the first team in the WNBA to win a championship, um, and for me, that one probably meant a little more because that was the year that I had my son and was able to come back and be a part of it. Was still a few pounds or more like 50 pounds overweight, but to be able to come back and share that moment with my teammates, the first one was for sure. um I don't want to say it was the most special, but the first one and the third one. And the third one, so you can't just give me one. I got to give you two. The third one because that was the one we won and dedicated to Kim Parat when she passed away. We had our saying 3 for 10. So those two will always be the most special to me.
I feel like so often when people talk about the Comets, it's just, oh, they're the most dominant team in pro sports history, and nobody could stop them, and they're the greatest team of all time. And I'm not trying to take away from that. But what I have to ask is, you look at that roster, and some of the greatest basketball players of all time were on one roster together. And in the W currently, we see a lot of superstar teams, right? And in the NBA and in all professional sports, you see superstar teams, but they don't always work out.
Hmm.
Make it a little personal for us. What was it like to be on that team sharing a locker room with these greats?
So, first of all, I'm going to say this. Yes, we were the greatest. We had some incredible players on that team. And I don't just mean myself, Tina, and Coop. We had Janeth Arcane, Kim Parat, Tammy Jackson, Wanda Guyton. I throw those names out because without those players understanding and accepting their roles, I don't know if we're that dominant team that everybody talks about, right? But it's crazy when I think about just everything we were capable of doing and everything we were able to do. And did it take sacrifices? Of course it did. The thing I think that made us different was, and I always say this, when you have your best player on the team willing to make sacrifices for the team, coming in earlier, staying later, working with players who honestly probably aren't going to get that much playing time, but I know for me it's important that every player on that team is ready to go, um because that's going to make me better, which in turn is going to make the team better. To me, that's what separates an average team from a great team. And we had players like myself and Tina and Coop that was willing to do that day in, day out, year in, year out. We won the first championship and we were excited and we celebrated, but then it became, okay, what do I have to do this off season to change my game, to make my game better, which is going to make the team better? Every single year, every off season, that was our focus. And that's what we talked about, because we weren't just satisfied with winning one championship. And the thing I get upset about is I'm like, damn, why couldn't we have started playing a little bit sooner? Maybe we would have 5 or 6 championships instead of 4 for selfish reasons. But Man, that was such an incredible run we had, and incredible players and staff that we had be a part of the Comets organization. And I know people talk about, one team. People talk about the Lynx, the Minnesota Lynx. I'll just put it out there and say, would I take our Comets team in our younger days versus the Lynx teams that was winning championships? I would put our team against them any day, and be very confident we're going to walk away with the chip.
Well, and as a true competitor, you should.
Right.
And I love that you kind of answered the question. One of the questions I had in my mind, I mean, that's a great debate within itself, right? Like, which dynasty has been the most dominant? And I loved what you said about when your hardest worker, or your best players when your hardest workers. And isn't that like the ultimate goal? I mean, I coached college basketball for a period of time, and we talked all the time about accepting our roles, and everyone from top to bottom, whatever role that was, accepting that, embracing that. And it's really cool to hear you speak on that, about that Comets organization, and not just star-studded, but everyone who knew what they needed to do and stayed hungry, didn't get complacent. I just think, I mean, I have so many questions regarding that era, because that was the era I grew up as a young girl really idolizing and watching. So it's really neat to hear you say that. But for you in particular, another question I want to ask: you played for a long time. I mean, 10, 11 years you were in the league. You played into your 40s. We talk about kind of the health, and look at Sue Bird, look at Diana Taurasi. How are you able to maintain your level of fitness and longevity?
Here's the crazy thing, because the game has changed, but so has everything else around it. When I it was never even a question for me. Like, I never looked at my age and said, oh my goodness, I'm 40, it's time for me to retire. Right. I always said I wanted to retire on my terms, not an injury, not being cut, not, nothing like that. So when I retired, I had gotten to a point where it wasn't even about my age, but it was about me saying, I honestly felt like I had really achieved and accomplished more than I ever thought I would as a professional athlete. So there really honestly wasn't a challenge there for me that made me hungry every day when I got up saying, okay, now it's time to achieve this or this, because I felt like I had kind of already done that. And on top of that, I was starting to have like really bad back pain. So I was like, I'm not going to let this injury knock me down and make me retire. I was at a point where I was ready to retire. But for me, it was just the discipline of, I always felt like there was somebody somewhere working a little bit harder than me and was coming for what I had. And that was a championship, not individual accolades, but that was a championship. And that just never sat well with me. So, I did everything from, I'm old school, so all of my stuff was in the gym. And I don't know how many people have heard of Fondy in Houston, but that is like the place you go if you want to get right. Men, women, NBA players, WNBA players, like the fellas playing at Fondy, like didn't take any slack. Like they went at me, and that was so when I was pregnant and was coming back, that's where I lived in Fondy. I was at Fondy probably, man, I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning, working out, running on the track, um doing one-on-one stuff. Then I would play some half court 3-on-3, half court 4-on-4. Then I played full court 5-on-5. Like, I'm old school, so that's how I stayed in shape and stayed ready to play. And when I say things have changed, like, you look at Sue and you look at Diana, and you don't think they're the age they are. And so for me, I never get caught up in that. But I think there's so much other stuff they have available to them to help them deal with, just stuff that Father Time is going to throw our way. We all have to go through that and deal with that. And I just think Sue and Diana have done such an incredible job of understanding their bodies and understanding what their bodies need, and making sure they're whether that's changing their diet or eating the right thing. Or I know Sue is really big into her Mindy products and, CBD. Like CBD back in the day was like, oh no, you don't do that. You know what I mean? And so I just think there's so many other products and things that players have readily available to them today that can help prolong their careers that we didn't have back then.
Very true.
Legally, I should say.
Exactly.
Let me
Um,
put legally up
um, well, a hot topic right now is I'm sure you've seen WNBA head coach vacancies. I'm curious for you what it's like to see those openings, and if there's
there.
anybody you would like to see fill those spots. And feel free to put your hat in the ring, because I know I speak for Rachel and myself when I say we would love to see Coach Swoopes.
Yeah.
Well, feel free to put my hat in the ring. I don't know if I'm putting my hat in there.
Okay.
I never say never though. So I was kind of pretty shocked to see Sandy. I'm not really sure what's going on there, what happened there. I mean, so I was shocked about that one. And I honestly was shocked about New York. Don't really know what happened there, but because I know he hasn't been there very long. But can I put some names out there for you?
Put them out. Let's go.
Well, before I do that, let me just say this. I am there are two coaches that I am super thrilled for and excited to see where they go with their career. And the first being Noelle Quinn in Seattle. I think what an incredible opportunity for her. And especially to be handed so much incredible talent, with Sue being there and Stewie and Joel Lloyd, and like she's got some great young talent. I hope to see her really excel in that role, and for her being so young to kind of be at the helm of that is incredible. And Tanisha Wright, I'm anxious and excited for her, but I'm probably more anxious to see what she does with Atlanta. There is no doubt some talent there, but there is also no doubt a lot of issues going on there. So I do think in knowing T and playing with her and against her, knowing the type of person she is and the player she was, I do think she is the perfect person for that job. And having, been an assistant under Bill for a few years, I definitely think she's ready for that. Now, when I look at Phoenix and New York, and if there are other vacancies, please tell me, but those are the two that kind of stick out to me. The first person, no doubt, that comes to mind for New York is Spoon. Um, I don't know if she's even interested with the position she has with the Pelicans, which is incredible also. But I will put this out here. Shame on the WNBA, shame on the Liberty ownership if Teaspoon's not the first call you make. I am saying that. I'm putting that out there.
Yep.
I just, for everything she's meant to, not just the Liberty, everything she's meant to the league, and where she is in her career now. I mean, to me, it's a no brainer. If she wants it, I think it should be hers. And maybe she doesn't even want it. So I did just put that out there. I have no idea whose name I would put out there for Phoenix, but that's a good job. I mean, whether Diana stays or retires, you got BG, you got Skylar, you got Kia Nurse, but there's some young talent that Phoenix has that whoever gets that job, you're walking into a job where you should be able to make it to the playoffs. I just don't know um whose name comes no one's name really comes to mind to me for that job. But would I love to coach in the W? I would. I'm just y'all, I'm gonna be honest with you. I am a Texas girl, and there's probably two places that I'm really like, man, I'd love that opportunity. that would be Dallas or Vegas.
Interesting, because I was gonna ask when you said you're a Texas girl, is there any rivalry between Dallas and Houston that you would, feel like you're burning your allegiance to H Town?
Well,
But I
but
guess
H
not.
Town doesn't have a team.
Fair point.
Now that's a whole different conversation we could have, you know. Now, if Houston had a team, there would never be any other place I would say yes, I would go there. When we had a team, I mean, Houston was rocking the at the time it was Compaq Center. The fans in Houston are incredible, and that's what I would love to see happen is Houston get another team.
Well, to end this episode, my last question, I know Rachel's got one more, but we like to do a fun rapid fire. Now, take all the time you want to answer the questions, but we dub it the rapid fire section. Um, what was your pregame meal?
A Snickers and a Dr. Pepper. Like it
Oh
really
man,
was.
I love that. What song got you ready for the game?
Ooh, I'm a music buff. I love I love music. I typically honestly listen to gospel though before every game, and it was usually Mary Mary or Yolanda Adams.
Yes.
I like that. If you could pick the location of the next expansion team, I feel like you've answered this, but say it one time.
H Town all day, baby. That's Houston for those who don't know H Town.
Oh no, they know. Who was the hardest in-game matchup you faced in your eyes?
Ooh, oh gosh. You mean as a team or one on one?
One on one. I want Sheryl
Mm,
Swoopes. Who was that person that you kind of envision? The battle of the Titans.
gosh. Um, it's crazy because I know a lot of players come on here or get asked this question and they're like, nobody. And I'm like, well, I won't say it, but I'm like, yeah, right. For me, I would say Tamika Catchings, because she's a hell of a defender. And then I'm gonna put a couple players that people might not know or remember. But Brandi Reed, who played for Phoenix, Brandi was a hell of an offensive player. So Brandi was a tough matchup for me. And then I'm gonna go old school Detroit with Tweety Nolan, just was phenomenal athlete. And the last one I'm gonna go LA Sparks, Mawadi Mabika.
I love that you threw out those names. Those are amazing. I love it. The last of my rapid fire. Who is the biggest trash talker you ever faced or you ever heard talking
Oh
that trash?
gosh. Ooh. Well, Cynthia Cooper, my teammate, was probably the biggest, but she also backed it up. So I'm gonna put Coop number one, and then I'm gonna go with Latasha Byers, who people may not remember, but Tato would let you have it. And then I'm gonna go with mm, probably Delisha Milton.
Okay. My favorite part of this is your reactions to our questions initially. It cracks me up. I absolutely love it. Aryeh lied. I have two questions. First and foremost, this is really important, and I love to ask this. What advice would you give to a young girl who wants to one day be a champion?
It's a great question. My first reaction would be, so go be a champion. That would be my reaction. And if she said, okay, well, how do I go be a champion?
Love it.
I would probably say, first of all, do it because you want to do it, not because someone else wants you to do it. And I say that because I think so many times our kids get caught up in doing something because either their parents or a coach or someone else is saying to them, you should go do this, and it's not something they want to do. And if they say, yes, that is what I want to do, then I would say there are several things that it's going to take to do it: being disciplined, making sacrifices, being committed, And you can never allow yourself to lose thought and focus of where it is you want to get to, even through the struggles. And I heard someone say the other day, without a struggle, there really is no story. I went through a lot of those struggles too, but through those struggles, it taught me about myself, and it taught me what it would take, and it showed me that I had what it would take to become that champion.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. All right. One final question before we let you go. It wouldn't be a show with Swoopes on here if we didn't talk about your shoes. And I want to add a quick question, because Aryeh and I were talking about this before the show, and I was sending pictures, and he was looking up all different places that he could find the Swoopes shoes, and we were doing all this research, and I said, you know what, I had those shoes, and I had them in junior high. And my dad was kind of a single dad, and he only let me get my shoes from Kohl's, and this was the one time I went at him and I said, Dad, I've got to get these shoes. Like, these are Swoopes' shoes. And he was like, okay, fine. We'll go to Foot Locker, wherever we went to get them. And it was the one time he was willing to spend a little bit extra money to get the hot shoe at the time. And I know it was because it was you, and it was a woman's shoe. And I rocked those shoes all of junior high until my toes were busting through them and I couldn't wear them anymore. And I love them so much. So I want to ask, what do two podcast hosts have to do to find a pair of the old school shoes? Because we can't find them.
I would say you need to know somebody that you know, but even that somebody has a hard time finding them. I don't know. I'm just going to be very honest with you. I get this question a lot. And what I have said was, start posting stuff on social media and tagging Nike. Like, I really do. I get a lot of people saying, I want your shoe. I want your shoe. I'd love to have your shoe. And I think it's so important that girls and women see that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's such a powerful statement for a little girl to be able to see a female with her own shoe. And then people say, well, do you think there'll be...
And it was for me. I'm a perfect example.
Well, and I know, I don't know about your story, but I know I've heard so many stories of little girls saying, yeah, like, it's great to know I can go in a store and ask for the Air Swoopes. I don't have to go ask for the Air Jordan, And I think it's well past overdue that we have another shoe. And I also think it's well past overdue that we bring the Swoopes back. So I probably can't help you much, Rachel.
I agree. I think we need to look back. Well, Sheryl, we are so appreciative of your time. Thank you for being here. I plan on doing everything I can to continue to push. Let's bring that Swoop shoe back. It's an icon, just as yourself. We are so excited to see what the future holds. We'll see you back, hopefully, maybe in that coaching chair one day. But again, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for everything you've brought to our game, genuinely and truly.
I have absolutely enjoyed it. I appreciate both of you for everything that you continue to do to support the game. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to Sheryl Swoopes for joining us. Don't forget to check out sign.com, the ultimate memorabilia experience platform. You can choose from amazing women's sports icons like Sheryl, but also NBA, NFL, NHL, entertainment, and music icons to deliver a once-in-a-lifetime customized autograph, paired with a personal video experience. Again, sign.com, and check them out on social media too. They're at Signed on Instagram and Get Signed on Twitter.